Welcome back to Mean Streets, where each week we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir.
I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth. Today's case is 1966's Harper, starring Paul Newman, Lauren Bacall, and Julie Harris, directed by Jack Smight. The logline for Harper is: cool private investigator Lou Harper is hired by a wealthy Californian woman to locate her kidnapped husband. Paul Newman as Harper. Luke, I reckon we've picked a pretty good movie to close out 2024's episodes.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm a big fan of Harper, the film and the books of Ross Macdonald as well. That is based on. So yeah, no, I think as a final film of the year, this one is certainly a good one to go out on. Probably not as well known as I would like it to be, but those who know about it do tend to like it. But yeah, end of the year, man. So
end of the year.
We've done a lot of episodes now. This is episode 33, but I think it's technically like episode 35 or 6 because we had a couple of specials somewhere. Bonus episodes in there a while ago. So yeah, I think I don't know. We've almost been going for a year. We almost have a year's worth of episodes done, which is nuts to think about.
It is. It's good though, isn't it? We've had a good time watching as we advertise ourselves the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film. We've sat through some stinkers, but we've also enjoyed some classics, I think. And we have. I think I said in an episode not so long ago, one of the joys of this for me is getting to watch films, or in a sense having to watch films that I wouldn't necessarily watch of my own accord or indeed have heard of, and that's a real bonus doing something like this. It's a real bonus it gives you. I've enjoyed some of the films we've watched. Even some of the howlers have been fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was I can't remember who it was. Someone on Twitter, one of our loyal listeners, made a comment about it. They said it was unfortunate that we did Michael Mann's Manhunter. And I was like, it's unfortunate. I was like, I was quite glad that we did it. And they're like, oh no, we mean because like you hated it so much. And I was like, yeah. I was like, it had its problems, but I'm still glad that I watched it. And I probably wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't for this podcast. So the podcast is also making me, same with you. It's tapping into things that I might have been aware of that I'm just haven't gotten around to yet. And this has given me the motivation to see things and rewatch things, and so it's been a good time. But we're not going to leave people hanging over the holidays though, so don't worry. We're going to have two specials, one over Christmas and one over New Year's. The Christmas special is going to be a desert island films stroke noir books. So we're gonna chat about some noir films and noir books that we want to have with us on a desert island. And then our New Year's specials, we're going to discuss 5 of our favorite private eyes. So don't worry, we have stuff coming up over the holiday period. We're not gonna leave you hanging. We're not gonna go dark. At least not yet. But with that said, should we dive into Harper?
let's get Harper going. So
Harper,
this is do we want to say something about the title first?
I think we can get there. I mean, it's that kind of comes in when we dive into like the writing of the film,
the writing of the piece. Right? So it's based on books, as you said, by Ross Macdonald.
Yes.
Series of books. Is Ross Macdonald as well known as you think he deserves to be?
No, he's quite forgotten. His books are available. People can find them in places. They're kind of accessible. I made a real effort earlier this year to buy all of his books. I got as many as I could from various places, but I had to get the bulk of them from eBay because they're just very hard. Some of them are very hard to get a hold of, which is disappointing because he was Ross Macdonald was the big successor to Raymond Chandler. So you kind of have to Shell Hammett, Raymond Chandler. Yes, you have Mickey Spillane, Mike Hammer stuff, but the real proper succession is Ross Macdonald, because he sort of brought in, he took he played with the hard-boiled genre, he took that forward, but infused a lot of psychoanalysis and went darker psychologically with his novels than what Chandler and stuff had done. But he wrote a ton. I think there's like 18 books. I think he has like 18 books. I might be wrong, but yeah.
There's loads of them. And I agree. I think he is forgotten, and it's unless you're a sort of devotee of crime fiction or of noir fiction.
Yes,
I think to the general populace, he is all but forgotten, and it is a real shame. It certainly isn't deserved, because these are great books, aren't they? He is a sort of natural successor to Chandler. You mentioned Mike Hammer, but Mickey Spillane and the Mike Hammer novels, they're quite different. I think they're much more sort of violent, I suppose. That the Macdonald books, I think, are a lot closer in tone to Chandler, and it is an easy stepping stone, isn't it, from one to the other? It's almost to the extent that I would say, if you like one, you will almost certainly like the other. So, and this is based on his first novel.
It is
his first mystery novel. So,
do you remember when you first came across Ross Macdonald?
It would have been about 20 years ago, and I was just coming off the back of rereading the Chandlers. For like the billionth time or whatever it will have been, and and I think I just thought, I can't read. Can't read those again.
I can't read these 5 books again.
Can't read these. Yeah. No, I can recite them. Don't need to read them again. And so I went scouting around for who else was similar. And I probably Googled somebody. Ask Google or whatever it will have been in those days. Ask Jeeves or whatever it was. If I like Raymond Chandler,
hard to see past of 2004, 20 years ago.
If I like Raymond Chandler, who else will I like, or something like that? I'll ask. And luckily, I went into Waterstones and found one. And I think it will have been. It certainly wasn't Moving Target, but I think it will have been the Galton case. If I really had to give a title,
which
is one of his more well known, I would say. And I loved it. So as I was wont to do in those days, when I found an author I liked, I just read them consistently until I'd had too much of them. And I don't remember when I first saw the film, this film version of Moving Target, but I remember thinking that's a good effort at getting this author to work on the screen. So what about you? When did you first discover him?
I came across Macdonald when I was doing my PhD. So that was, my main focus for that was hard-boiled fiction, and so I was just, there were people that I knew about already, but then I was trying to find others, and during that period, I came across Macdonald, and I was like, and just fell in love with the work, and read quite a few. I think The Blue Hammer might be one of my favorites. I really like that one. And Moving Target. We keep saying Moving Target. That's the title of the book that Harper is based off of.
Yes,
we should probably make that clear. Moving Target is also great. And then obviously, I'm always interested to see what was adapted or not adapted. And then when I saw that, Moving Target was adapted as Harper with, this sort of stellar cast.
Yes, great cast.
Paul Newman as Lou Harper. I was like, holy crap, I have got to see this, because my goodness. And I wasn't disappointed.
No, I think this is a corker. Without giving too much away about what mark we might give it, what rating we might give it later on. I think this is a cracker. It's got everything that I could really want from a PI story.
You want a fun aside?
Yeah, go on.
So a while ago, probably, I don't know what year, 2022, something like that, several years ago. Me and my wife went to the in-laws for a week. And sometimes when we're there, they'll want to sit down and watch a film or something like that. And somehow I convinced them to watch Harper. And we started it. And my wife's dad is, I'll never listen to this, so it's fine, the biggest snob you will ever come across with anything, books, movies, TV shows. He instantly turns his nose up to just about anything that he doesn't recommend, right? So
yeah.
I think in this movie, there's a scene quite early on where there is a very attractive woman dancing on a diving board.
Yes.
He noped out. Like he didn't just like sit there and watch it and dislike it. He got so annoyed with the movie that he had to get up and leave. And I'm like, dude, you clearly just have like no taste. No taste.
Absolutely.
But and I don't actually remember if we watched it. I was so kind of taken aback by the extreme reaction that I was like, well, let's just stop it then, because I love this movie and I don't want to sit here and have people dog on this movie that I think is actually like a good fun movie. So
I don't understand that reaction at all.
No, not to this. No way.
Lunatic.
No.
A lunatic reaction. I mean, short of anything else, it's 1966, isn't it? You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Was happening. You know, it was. Everyone was all sort of liberated, weren't they? So
yes,
they could dance.
Was her parents' like youth?
Yeah.
So it's like I don't understand what your problem is. Like
you were part of this.
The funny thing to me is like they're from the generation of like the Beatles, like, you know, Paul McCartney and that ilk, who listen to that music thinking that they're like being hippie and anti-establishment when like John Lennon and all them are totally capitalists. It's like, okay, you think you're fighting the power, but you're not, and you're just stop. But so they did not enjoy it. So I'm pretty sure we stopped the movie. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie. I'll be able to talk about this one for forever.
As a sort of conclusion to that little aside, it's your in-laws' loss.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
So they're the ones that'll have to live with that.
Yes. So as we always do, I guess we should sort of go behind the camera and talk about the talent that got this film made. There is lots of it. I mean, actors aside, the film is written by William Goldman, who is Princess Bride, All the President's Men, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
Misery. Like he is a fantastic novelist and screenwriter. But it was we'll go with director first. So it was directed by Jack Smight. He seems mostly like a TV guy, episodes of the Twilight Show and things like that. Nothing sort of that popped out to me, really. I don't know about you, but
no, I had the same reaction. I mean, I didn't know his name.
I didn't recognize it.
When I looked him up, the only thing that really stood out to me was that he directed a film called Airport 1975, which is one of those disaster movies, Irwin Allen disaster movies, right? That were churned out endlessly in the 70s. You got the Poseidon Adventure, and then you just got the Towering Inferno, and then you got just any other type of disaster you could think of. I mean, really, Airport 75, if memory serves me correctly, is an extended TV episode of something. You know, if there were a TV anthology series called Disaster, you know, this would have been an episode of it. So, but beyond that, I didn't really know anything about him. And it's odd, isn't it? That then he's responsible for this, or he's in the creative team for this. But he's obviously done a lot of. There was a lot of TV, definitely a lot of TV. A couple of Alfred Hitchcock TV episodes.
Yeah.
Does it show? I'm not sure it shows, to be quite honest.
No, I mean it's weird because the film looks great. It's like the blocking is great. The set pieces are wonderful. There's a lot going on, and it's great to look at. And it doesn't. I mean, this is it almost sounds like I'm trying to say like a TV director shouldn't be able to accomplish this kind of stuff. But it's just the shame to me is that he clearly knocked out of the park with this. So I'm like, why didn't he do more?
Go on to do something else.
That's really where I'm going with this. I'm like, he should have. I feel like Jack Smight, based off of this film, we should be seeing lots of Jack Smight films.
We should be seeing lots of Jack Smight, yeah.
Because like, what's going on? Because I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe, I mean, at the time Harper came out, he had signed a 6-picture deal with Warner Brothers, and he had just finished another film for them, and then went on to do Harper. So he might have just been a company man who just was churning out films for Warner Brothers, and that was a few films and a lot of TV, and that's just what he was happy to do. I don't know.
That's what he was. Yeah, maybe he was just a jobbing director.
Yeah,
but sometimes you can tell. I mean, I know what you mean about looking down your nose at TV directors, and that's not what we intend to do, what we mean to do. But sometimes you can tell that there is a leap to be taken from TV screen to cinema screen, and sometimes you can tell they're not quite ready for, or they're not quite ambitious enough with the scope of it. But I don't get that sense with Harper at all. At all.
No, there's a really good quote from Smight that that made me feel it's like, okay, it shows that he understood the assignment, and I think was probably the right man in terms of director for this, because he's quoted as saying, because like you said earlier, this is 1966. We're in the midst of James Bond frenzy at the moment. That is, spy thrillers are the bee's knees at this point in time. So he's quoted as saying, attempting a private eye story at the height of all these Bonds could have been a risky business, which I would say definitely was risky for that time, because really at this point in time in the early 60s, noir is sort of dead.
It's dead.
Noir sort of stopped with what was that movie with Charlton Heston and
Touch of Evil.
Touch of Evil. Yes, that is sort of the end of classic noir, and we're now entering into neo-noir phase, and so it is risky at this moment. So I totally agree with his sentiment there. But he says, we wanted to capture some of the qualities of Double Indemnity and all those early Raymond Chandlers and Hammetts. He says, in other words, to do a really good movie. But I like this bit, but without being accused of retrogressing. And I love that. And I think that is such an important part here, because the Macdonald books, there's still more to the quote we'll get to in a minute, but there's still, the thing about the Macdonald's books is they're set in the 40s. So they did the tricky thing that Chandler's novels have not been able to succeed at, and that is being adapted for present day, which they try to do later on with The Big Sleep, and we'll cover that some other time. But this Macdonald, this Moving Target adapted as Harper in the 60s is perfect. It works perfectly well.
It does, and I don't know if there's like a tangible reason for that. Why some can be moved to contemporary times, we'll say, rather than modern day, and others can't. There is something about Philip Marlowe that means he isn't right, because we know from The Big Sleep that he isn't right out of his time and place. It doesn't work. Poirot wouldn't work in the modern times either. He has to be set in the time he is. But somehow it works with Harper, doesn't it? Somehow it's carried off.
My sort of take on that is I think it really depends on who is adapting and what and how they're doing it. That is I think in the right hands, quite possibly something like Marlowe could be adapted for present day, but it has to be the right hands. I know a few authors have tried. I know Joe Ide did a book recently of modern day Philip Marlowe, but like doing his origin story told in the third person. It was just like I couldn't understand why the Chandler estate approved that nonsense. It was dog crap. Sorry, I'm very very mean about this. So I'm sorry, Joe Ide, if you ever listen to this. But like it felt like a gimmick, and I didn't like it, and it falls into that. Yeah, it falls into that publishers trying to make franchises out of other. It just drives me nuts.
This is the same thing. Just interrupting for a bit. This is the same complaint I have about novels that come out and films that come out about, say, Sherlock Holmes' sister, you know, who doesn't appear in Doyle. It's just a way of saying, well, we'll put a name on there that is bound to sell. Bingo. You know, rather than creating your own. Bingo. And trying to get a new Victorian schoolgirl detective off the ground. You know,
yes,
and it's the same because the further away from the original source that you go, the worse it is to me, and
definitely,
and the more pointless it is to me because you know, if you're not going to try and keep close to the original source, why are you bothering? Why write a third-person Marlowe novel, for example? Why do that? What? The whole point of those is that they're first. One of the most sort of fundamental things about him is that they're first person. That's how you get to know who Marlowe is.
Exactly.
What Marlowe thinks like. You know, so anyway, it's a common complaint.
Yeah, but to carry on with Smite's quote, and this is I think one of the key things, was that he says, I studied some of those pictures to see what made them tick. I think that's one of the key things, like, and this is what I mean by having the right people in charge. Smight is coming at this and studying the pictures of the time and saying, what were they doing? How can I do this in a modern sense? When we get to William Goldman, he is a big fan of Ross Macdonald, huge fan of Ross Macdonald. So he's coming at this from this sense of like, this guy is a great writer, as in Macdonald's a great writer. I want to adapt his novel and do it justice. And I think those two combinations combined are what make things like this work. And I know we won't go into it, but I know, like, this is why I think like that very first season of BBC Sherlock worked. It adapted it just right, had that balance of modern day and Victorian balance. And I think that's what Harper has here. It's like that perfect post-war, disillusionment with 60s vibes happening at the same time. Blended those together, I think, quite well.
Yeah. I think I've made this point before that, and it's I'm saying it again to back you up on what you've just said. That it is always a massive benefit to any adaptation if the screenwriter wants to do justice to the original work.
Yeah.
And not just use the characters' names to do something else.
Yeah.
If they want to be faithful to it, I think I've made the comment about Michael Cox and the Granada Sherlock Holmes series, which again we won't go into. He wanted to do the original stories as they were written and put them on the screen. That's why that series was so successful. And it's the same. It's the same here. It's the same here.
Yeah. There are rumors that there were some possible problems on set, though. Robert Wagner, who plays the character Alan Taggert, is quoted as saying that Smight apparently lacked confidence as a director. And again, maybe this is partly why we don't see much from him. Maybe that's why, when you are a director of TV, you're just sort of, there is a formula, there's a format. You just are there to make sure people hit their mark, ultimately. So this might be something to it. But apparently his wife was on set with him the entire time. And Taggart says it sort of functioned as a security blanket, and said that was annoying because a film set derives its specific temperature from the star and the director, and our director was nervous, which can make the cast and crew nervous. But he says that Paul Newman pretended not to notice, which, from what I hear about Paul Newman, he was a classy
class act. Yeah, class act.
But he says Paul pretended not to notice, and his confidence spread to the rest of the cast. So the reason he was, confident was because William Goldman's script was tight and amusing, and the cast kept things bubbling. So that's very interesting, and I think this might be the reason why we're not seeing. We never got to see more Jack Smight.
Yeah,
because,
very possibly.
I
mean, a similar sort of thing happens with Robert Mitchum and the director of Farewell, My Lovely in '76, where I think he's either a TV director or certainly a fledgling director. And Mitchum says, I don't think he's going to be able to handle this. So everyone's a bit nervous because this director doesn't really know what he's doing. But then he directs a couple of scenes and Mitchum says, I get it now. I get him. I know what he's doing. So this is going to be a killer. Sometimes you have to find your feet, don't you, with people?
Yeah.
And I get the impression, because I read that Robert Wagner quote about the cast being nervous, and I can imagine it. Because the director's meant to be the captain of the ship,
definitely.
And if he is displaying nerves, then you're not going to have faith in him, are you? Until he starts to get things down, on print, as it were.
Yeah.
So I can understand what Wagner says, but the end product is still fantastic.
Fantastic. Nerves are not.
Well, and that should have got rid of his nerves. That should have got rid of his nerves, really.
It should have done. I agree. But yeah, so let's move on to William Goldman, because that's what a fantastic writer he is.
This man is great. This man is great. Sorry, I was just saying he's responsible for some of my favorite films.
What are they? List them off.
Well, he's Marathon Man, All the President's Men, Magic with Anthony Hopkins. I'm a big fan. I do like Chaplin, the biopic.
Oh yeah.
And he did that. And he also wrote the novels for the novel Magic, which is quite different to the film in many ways, but he's also a great novel. Yes. This man is Goldman is brilliant. Goldman is absolutely fabulous. Like I say, responsible for some of my favorite things and my favorite films, and they all sort of follow each other. Marathon Man and All the President's Men, I think, are the same year. And Magic is only a couple of years after. So he, and then he's got A Bridge Too Far. He did work on A Bridge Too Far in the middle of all that. Like you say, The Princess Bride, Misery. I mean, this man is responsible for some really weighty and meaty films.
Yes, definitely. But also The Princess Bride, which he also wrote the book.
And also The Princess Bride,
which I love. So basically, the producer of the film who had optioned this, Elliot Kastner, approached Goldman and was like, basically he expressed a desire to make a movie that was, quote, that was a tough movie that had, quote, balls. And Goldman, being this huge fan of Lou Archer, and I'm saying Lou Archer because in the books, Harper's name is actually Lou Archer, not Lou Harper. But we'll get to that later. So he was a big fan of Macdonald's novels, suggested them. Because to quote Goldman, he says that that Macdonald is the finest series of tech novels written by an American. So he likes Macdonald more than he likes Chandler, more than Hammond.
Yeah.
This is, and I mean, he's good. Macdonald is really good. I mean,
Macdonald is good.
To give Chandler a run for his money, this guy's one of them. He's 18 books and they're all, it's a solid body of work.
It is a solid body of work, and there's no attempts. Certainly, in my reading of it, there's no attempt to emulate Chandler. He takes the sort of ingredients of A Private Eye, but his writing style is entirely different. There's no attempt to do those similes. He takes. They have the same idea of a detective, of what a detective is and should be, but Macdonald does his own thing with it, and that is all to his credit. All to his credit. That's what everyone should do. That's what everyone should do.
Yeah, I mean, you still got that first-person past tense narration. You still have
it's
that
a first-person narration,
in the head of the detective. But yeah,
but if I gave you if you gave someone a passage of Chandler and a passage of MacDonald, there's you would know which was which, wouldn't you? Straight away, you'd know which was which. They're both in first-person past tense, but the way that they deal with it is completely different.
Yeah,
and I agree with Goldman because he said that MacDonald was one of the best American novelists now operating, and I think he probably is, or was at the time. And I like the fact that he differentiates in that quote. He says the finest series of detective stories ever written by an American, but he differentiates that in that second quote and just calls MacDonald a novelist, not a crime novelist, not a crime writer, a novelist. And people say about Chandler that he should be viewed and studied and appreciated as a novelist rather than a crime writer, and as an American novelist at that. And I think Goldman's spot on. MacDonald should be as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think in a lot of ways there are certain people who are labeled crime fiction that I think, yes, you're writing a crime novel, but come on now.
Yeah, you are doing something else as well, quite obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. There's a book out at the moment. It's everyone's talking about. Has been out for a while now, but a book called Yellowface, which is a big literary novel and stuff like that people are loving. And I've read it. It's really good. In certain shops, I will see it in the general fiction section. In other shops, I will see it in crime. And there's a crime ish. There's some mystery, yes, but it's it doesn't belong in crime. It's a novel, and that's where it belongs. And so there's certain things I think, in some ways, some of these authors, I think, like MacDonald, like Chandler, like Hammett, just because they're using they're using that genre, and everyone likes to have the boxes. But these guys aren't just crime fiction novelists. They transcend that for sure.
Yeah, they're using the crime genre to examine bigger things, bigger issues, and bigger themes. That's the way I've always that's always been my take on it. But anyway, Goldman.
Yes, so Kastner agreed to option any of Ross Macdonald's books that Goldman suggested, which is pretty cool for Goldman. He says he went and reread all of his books, which I'm like, did you reread all of them, or did you just open the first few pages? But he went back to the source material and went looking for the right one, and he chose The Moving Target at the end of the day. One of the reasons he chose Moving Target, from what I understand, is as Macdonald's work goes on, he sort of matures. There's sort of less action, less violence, and it's more cerebral. Whereas Moving Target sort of had a lot of that early, had a lot of those PI tropes of the action and the violence, and he thought that would be the best one to adapt at this stage. So Kastner paid Ross Macdonald $1,000 for the film rights, and paid Goldman $5,000 to write the script. Something doesn't add up there.
Yeah, something not quite right there.
But okay, poor Ross Macdonald getting shafted once again.
I wonder if he had something of the mindset of Colin Dexter, who wrote the Inspector Morse books, who famously said, when someone options your work for TV, you just say yes to everything. All the changes they want to make, particularly to the character of Lewis. And he said, but my reasoning behind that is, if you're going to get 35, 40 million people watching this that then say, actually, I might go and read one of these books, you've increased your sales and royalties by 40 million.
True. Who knows?
So you take peanuts at the outset in the hope that you get an exponential rise in the number of sales of your actual books.
Yeah,
seems like a risk to me, but you know what I mean. But yeah, on the face of it, MacDonald gets shafted.
Sadly, I would say so. So the original script was just going to be called Archer, but they changed the name to Harper. There's a couple of different stories as to why. some say that it was because of something to do with Paul Newman. Others say other quotes are that it has to do with them not buying the rights to the entire series, which doesn't really make sense to me.
No, I read one that said they wanted to avoid because Macdonald had used the name Archer after Spade and Archer, and they wanted to avoid any sort of collision with Miles Archer. I'm not sure I believe any of these.
Yeah, I mean, Goldman is quoted as saying a couple of these speculations, but again, it's sort of, I think the real reason is lost to time.
Yeah, I think so. I do like what Goldman says though. Goldman said we needed a different name for whatever reason that might be, and Harper seemed okay.
Yeah,
because the guy harps on things. It's essentially what he does for a living.
I mean, there you
harping
go.
on at everybody, and that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it sure does. Now, this for Goldman. This is his, like, career breaking moment. This is his big moment. He was writing a script previously on another film, but apparently been fired from that when this job fell into his lap. Now, interestingly enough, from script to screen, very little changed, according to Goldman. But he said that was kind of a bad thing because that's not the norm with the film industry. Your screenplay changes a lot. So he was like that, sort of set up some expectations that were swiftly destroyed as he moved forward. But yeah, so casting. Should we talk casting?
Let's talk casting.
So there were, I only know of one potential other option for the character of Lou Harper, and that was, everyone can guess it, Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra. Yeah. Now, all I'll say is, because Sinatra turned it down, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but thank heavens he did, because I don't think it would be. Newman makes this for me.
Yes.
Newman is absolutely brilliant casting in this, and what he does with the role, and like the use he makes of those eyes and the expressions on his face are just absolute gold throughout the film.
Yes.
I think we're fortunate that Sinatra passed it along, to be quite honest.
I agree. I think casting wise, everyone is perfect in this. I think Newman was perfect for Harper. I think Lauren Bacall, what a wonderful callback.
What a great callback.
Film noir,
Yeah.
like,
yeah, because she's General Sternwood, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's General Sternwood in all but name.
Yes.
It's a brilliant throwback.
I love that she was in it. Julia Harris as Betty Fraley, Arthur Hill as Albert Graves, Janet Leigh as Susan Harper, as Harper's sort of soon to be ex-wife.
Soon to be ex, yeah. Who he treats very badly, let's be honest.
He does. It's such a heartbreaking romance, but they're in the middle of a divorce, so you sort of get why they're getting divorced. They love each other, but it's not going to work. But interestingly, because there are several scenes with Susan Harper that Janet plays, and again another callback to classic film noir, because Janet Leigh is in Touch of Evil. She plays Susan Vargas.
She does.
Is it a coincidence that her name is Susan? Because Harper's wife isn't in the books. We know he's divorced, but she's not in the books. I don't remember her name. I do not remember her name.
No, I don't remember her name. But I remember him only mentioning her in passing. But I don't remember if he names her. Yeah. I don't know. I'm always very suspicious of supposed coincidences like this in cinema, because I don't necessarily think there's such a thing as coincidence in cinema. I always think everything's there for a reason, and everything is done for a reason. And I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't a little homage to Touch of Evil.
Yeah.
I
love the addition. I love that they actually made this person a character in the movie, because it adds a really great dimension to Harper's life.
It does. It adds depth, and I like the fact. I say he treats her really badly, and he does, but I that's not a complaint, if I can put it that way, because it shows that he is, a flawed man. He's not necessarily a nice bloke, and we're not always nice all the time, are we? None of us are. So, it adds depth to him, because very often the problem with Private Eyes very often can be that they become ciphers, and they just become a way of solving the mystery, and they have no personality of their own. If they're handled badly, any fictional detective that can apply to. So adding Susan adds a layer of depth to Harper's character, which I think is needed. And what's good about it, because it's such good writing and it's such good acting from both of them. You only need her in a couple of scenes.
Yeah.
You know everything about that marriage. However many years of marriage is crumbling away. You know everything about that marriage in, I would say, something like 10 minutes of screen time for the two of them.
You do. And the thing is great. It's like you have these moments where, the very first kind of interaction that we get between Janet Leigh and Harper is over the phone, and he's speaking to her lawyer, who is sort of his friend, and she won't speak to him directly, but he can hear her over the phone, and they're sort of having this, middleman conversation. But then later on in the film, when he's, on his investigation, he takes a moment, he pauses, and he calls her in the middle of the night and pretends to be someone else, and she kind of clocks on that it's him.
I love this bit.
I do too. It is really one of my favorite moments in the movie. And in that moment, when they both start laughing and she falls back on the bed, you get a sense of, oh my gosh, these guys are in love.
Yeah, absolutely. You do. Well,
and you're like,
you're
this
in no
is
doubt
why they
about
worked.
it.
Yeah, you're like, this is why
when
it
was
worked.
good, it was like this.
Yes.
When it was bad, it's like the next morning.
Yes.
And like you say, they're in love, but they'll never be right together. They'll never work together. It's heartbreaking, but it's
and
it adds that layer of that texture to Harper's character. And I love that when he puts on an English accent, doesn't he, to speak to her in the middle of the night, and she says, and he's saying, he's talking all this nonsense, this drivel. And she says, "Do you know what my husband used to do to me, Mr. Smith, whatever name he's used? He used to phone me up in the middle of the night and pretend to be somebody else." That's great writing. That's great. Instead of just saying, "I know it's you, stop messing about and all this business."
Yeah.
She goes along with it because once upon a time she found it funny.
Yes. Yeah. I loved it. And and I guess I was just like encapsulate her part of the film now, because then he does go to the house, and essentially he woos her again, and they spend the night together, and the next morning the gorgeous Janet Leigh is making breakfast for him, and
bacon and eggs,
and he's like, "This ain't gonna happen, babe, sorry." And you're like, you are an a-hole.
Yeah, absolutely.
What an a-hole.
Yeah, your parents weren't married. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because she is so good and she's so nice in it, and you just think she deserves better than this. And if this is what
breaks the eggs.
She squashes the egg yolks. Yeah, and if this is if this is how you treated her, no wonder she wants to divorce you.
Yes,
I just think that whole, and again, it's the writing and the performance, but those two things combined produce fabulous cinema chemistry.
Yes,
and flesh out a relationship and a character that really badly needs it, I think.
Yeah,
and who better to get than Janet Leigh?
There you go. And I also like the fact that this film doesn't really have a femme fatale per se, as in there's not a femme fatale who is trying to get in Harper's pants to, thwart the investigation. There really isn't that kind of character, which I appreciate. I think this film would have maybe been a bit cheesy if they had tried to inject something like that. But I'm glad that they didn't, because I just love the relationship between him and Susan. I think that was, there's moments where, the Lauren Bacall's, daughter Miranda Sampson, she teases at the idea of trying to be seductive. And when she's called on it, she is a scared little kitten about it. And she's like, oh, no, I'm kidding. So there's teases of like sexuality and femme fatale moments, but there's not a lot of, there's no sort of acting on that, which I like, even from, Elaine Sampson, Lauren Bacall's character, you kind of think, oh, she's going to be somehow involved in her husband's disappearance. You think she's not. She's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I like the fact it goes nowhere. Miranda's flirting goes nowhere. She says something like, are you trying to impress me or something? And he says, you have a way of starting conversations that end conversations.
Yes, great line.
And then the next question is, why is your wife divorcing you? And he just repeats it to her. Yeah, and it's just like, shut up and don't speak to me, because I'm not going to get involved with any of this. And it's, but then she's lying seductively on that bed in someone's house. I can't remember whose house it is now, and he's rifling through the closet. And
it's her dad's love shack.
It's the love shack, that's right, yeah. And he's rifling through the closet, and she's desperately trying to be alluring and sexual there, and he's just not interested.
No.
It's a nice little reversal. It's a nice little, we know what you think this woman, what you're expecting this woman to be, and we're going to pull the rug out from under you. That's what I think this film.
Yes, because ultimately, even she's a good person. She's not a bad person, which I like. I like that. The subversion of like the femme fatale is great in this, because there isn't one. No, Lauren Bacall's character is she's called Lady Macbeth. Miranda calls her Lady Macbeth at the very beginning. Is Lady Macbeth she calls her, or is it oh crap, am I getting confused with something else? I can't remember now. But basically she's an old hag who's just there for the money. But that's as evil as she is. She's not murdering for the money. She's not
murdering for the money. No.
She has the money. She has everything she wants. All she wants, Bacall's character, all she wants is for her stupid rich husband to not give any more of their wealth away to people.
Yeah. Because he's just her own inheritance.
Because he's just given away a bunch of land to a cult. And she's like, what are you doing? This is my inheritance, you dumb bastard.
And what I like about that is that you can follow, you wouldn't you? If your spouse suddenly gave a load of money and land to a cult, you would say, what on earth are you doing, darling?
Yes.
Wouldn't you?
Yes.
So she's only doing what's a perfectly natural thing to do. And then the man disappears. So she has to hire someone to find him. It's all very natural. It's all very logical and reasonable.
Yes.
It's great. It's great. And I just mentioned Julie Harris's character, because I'm a big fan of Julie Harris. And I like her trajectory. I like her arc from, getting Harper beaten up to becoming very sympathetic at the end.
The piano player, the piano singer, right?
The piano singer, yeah. Betty Fraley. She's this crummy lounge singer, and I just like the way that her character develops across the over the course of the film, and that her role in the film changes as the character changes. I just think it's and her performance is fabulous. She's great in it.
She is. I actually listened to the commentary track for this film that's done by Goldman, which was really fantastic to listen to. Highly recommend watching the movie and then rewatching it with his commentary, because he praised Julie a ton, because she's big in Broadway, and he always thought that she should have been much bigger in film because she's fantastic. But he was speculating that that she must have loved Broadway more than film, because she was cracking.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, sort of building off that, something that he was praising about Newman as well is that Paul never wanted to be surrounded by actors who were lesser. He always wanted to be working against really good actors, because it meant that it makes him have to work harder, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And apparently he was also the kind of guy, and this is something that I really like about Newman as well, he's also the kind of guy where he wasn't bothered about the size of the role. He just wanted to make the roles great. And that to me is like, that's the sign of a great actor. And that shines in this, because he's bouncing off against incredible actors and always sort of having to, not one up, but like kind of one up everyone in these scenes, to sort of keep the shine.
I've long said that there are certain actors who, when they're up against people who are better than they are, really do up their game. Tom Cruise is one.
Yes.
I always think.
Yeah.
If you look at him in A Few Good Men, when he's up against people like Nicholson and Kevin Bacon, he's really got to hold his own there so that he doesn't get buried under the talent of everyone around him. And Newman's a great actor anyway. I think he's a great actor. But I like the fact that he says that's what he does, that he wants to be up against the best so that it keeps him on his toes. He's an actor who just happens to be a movie star rather than a movie star, I think he'd be just as happy in an indie, art house flick as he would in a Hollywood blockbuster. So, and I like the bit about the don't care about the size of the role. And he wanted to do this, if I remember correctly, he wanted to do this because it was so different to something he was doing.
He done a couple of comedies or something like that
at the time, and he was in a period piece, I think, that he hated, and he wanted to do something as different as he could find, and got this. So he's doing it for the right reasons. He's doing everything for the right reasons, and his performance is great in this.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrific. It's interesting because Goldman also was saying his commentary is so funny, because the commentary was done in 2003, because I worked this out, because he was at one point he said the 90s he says the 90s were like the worst decade for film ever. And he said the first, the most of the films of the new century have been pretty crap, except for last year. The movies that were nominated for awards were really good, and one of those films is Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. So I'm like, okay, so you're recording this in 2003. That's when this is when this recording is happening. So that is a very interesting kind of mindset to kind of get into while I was listening to this commentary, to hear his commentary, because he was dogging on the 90s. Like, Goldman hated the 90s, which maybe for crime films weren't the best. I think you had a couple of good ones. You had some Jack Ryan movies out there, Harrison Ford, that were great. But there's some stinkers. But it's one of his main points that I found quite interesting to think about was that he was talking about how stars today are very different. And so by stars today, he means in 2003. Stars today are very different to what they were in the 60s, and that someone like Newman is the kind of star is hard to find for this role of Lou Harper, and basically says, trying to postulate, who would you get now to play this character. And it's interesting because he's like, there's no more Bogart, there's no more Newman, there's not many people who could actually fulfill this role. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to think about, because he's saying this in 2002, and by 2024, where we are, I mean, how many years have we been saying that the celebrity, the movie star is dead now? There are no more movie stars. There's Tom Cruise is the last action hero.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. And Harrison Ford, I would say, is the last old-fashioned movie, one of the last old-fashioned movie stars. But there aren't. They are dead. You know, they're gone. And it's a shame. I think it's a real shame.
It is interesting because I think I'm like, yeah, it's like, you know, and we've seen things. I thought Sugar, you know, we've talked about Sugar. Sugar was great. Colin Farrell was fantastic in that role. But I mean, one thing that Goldman talks about, he goes, I like to cast when I'm writing. So he will think of people. So he was like, for some of his stuff, he was thinking of like Cary Grant, for things, and like, and I will try to do that. I will sit there and try to cast who would I put in this role. And I got to be honest, when I'm writing my books, sometimes it is difficult to cast because I'm like, I don't know of the people that are on TV and in movies. I don't really know right now who I would be thrilled about to see take on a role that I've written. I don't know.
No, I don't. I agree. I largely agree. I also tend to cast people in inverted commas when I write my books, but it's mainly for a point of reference, so I remember roughly what they look like, so that the descriptions don't end up going all over the place, you know, throughout the course of the novel.
yeah.
But mine are like, you know, so the film versions of my books in my head, I've got like, you know, Pierce Brosnan up against James Cagney.
Sure,
you know
yeah.
You know, it's just like a sort of desert island discs of casting. But I don't know who you get to play Lou Archer now. I'm not really sure. I don't know who I get to play Philip Marlowe either, to be quite honest. Not Liam Neeson is all I'll say.
No.
But
no, the guy who played Perry Mason. That's who you get.
Oh, and yeah. He sort of spoiled it now by doing Perry Mason, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, it is difficult, and you know, I don't know whether Newman would have been surprise casting at this time, for a role such as this. Maybe not.
I don't think
know.
so.
The
impression I got was the surprise is that they're even making this PI thriller in a sea of spy thrillers. You know, that seemed to be the most unique thing going for this film, and that was one of the kind of the surprise things is the return of film noir.
Yeah, and this is a noir film, definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, but people can have too much of a good thing, can't they? And this is what Hollywood does, doesn't it? Something is successful. The Bond films were successful, so everybody makes spy thrillers, you know, and then there's an overdose of them.
Yeah.
So when a little PI flick comes tooling along, it can be a breath of fresh air. You know, it can be, no spies in this. Thank God for that. You know, this is a straightforward cop thriller in inverted commas. And you go to the theater, you see Harper, and you come out, certainly if you're me, having had a thoroughly good time. You know, because it's such a good film, and you know, given this and the Bond films that would have been being made at this time, I know roughly pretty much where my allegiance would be. I'll tell you that. You know.
Very true. So there are so many cool characters in this. I think we should probably just hang on Archer for Harper for just a little bit longer. I think one of the cool things about this movie is, like, you know, we were quite hard on him earlier because he does some very mean things to his ex-wife by wooing her and then dumping her again. It is the meanest thing that he does, I think, in the book or in the
it is. Yeah, it is.
But I love our introduction to him, which the opening sequence was the last thing that Goldman wrote.
It is.
Yeah, he was told to write a credit scene, and he was like, I don't know what to do for that. He's like, typically it's like the call from the client or da. And he's like, what if the guy just had to get up, right?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I loved it. Like he kind of
the whole coffee making business. Yeah, the whole coffee making business.
And that was the thing. He's like, he loves, you know, he gets out of bed, he's sort of staggering about. Then you kind of quickly realize, he's just he's a guy, he's sleeping in his office. His life isn't that great. He just wants a coffee, and there are no coffee grounds. So what does he do? He digs the coffee grounds out of the bin and reuses those. And Goldman says, like, when that scene first played, he goes, that was a scene that won everyone over. Like, from that moment on, they liked him. And you're like, oh, he's a tired, exhausted guy who just wants a cup of coffee. Okay, I'm with him now. Let's see where he goes.
Instantly identifiable.
Love it.
You know, I'm not saying my solution to that problem will be to scrape out the used ground coffee beans, but we all know what it's like to be bone tired. Have to wake up because it's the morning, and all you want is a bit of peace and a cup of coffee, probably with a headache. You know.
Yes.
And instantly identifiable, as I say. So you're instantly on his side. You know.
Yes.
You're instantly on his side.
But
and I love the whole thing of sticking his head in the ice water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All that is ace, which apparently Newman did every day of his life.
Apparently. But he also does other things throughout the film that I think are really that point to his chivalry, and that is one when after he meets with Bacall, and he's like, well, she's a bit of a piece of work. He then goes out and speaks to Alan Taggert and Miranda, the daughter, and he's very much trying not to look.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And Miranda, I mean, absolutely stunning. It's insane. But she's dancing like a dummy. Like she's just some little boppity 20-year-old kid who thinks she's hot shit. I mean, she is hot, but she's not the shit. And he's just sort of he's trying not to look, but then we later on when she's trying to seduce him in that bedroom, and he's just like, just stop it, kid. I like that he just doesn't. It's not to the same effect, but it's kind of what I was like thinking back when, to kind of make a big jump, but to 007 to Spectre, when Bond is hooking up with Madeline Swan. I'm like, she's a kid. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Doing
exactly.
Gross.
Yeah.
Jeez. I like that Harper was just not having any of that. He's like,
absolutely. Absolutely. Because she and I love the fact that is played off against the fact that Robert Wagner's character, Alan Taggert, is he's loving every minute of it and getting an eyeful, like
yes,
left, right, and center, and playing up to that sort of characteristic of himself, And then at one point, Taggert says, "What is it with everyone like misunderstanding my relationship with Miranda?" You think, it's quite easily done, Alan. If you look at yourself, it's perfectly obvious what you want that relationship to be, or what you want people to think it is. So as he's lying by the pool in his shorts, and she's dancing right in front of him on the diving board. It's and then Harper's there in a suit, so they're all like almost naked, and he's there in a full suit and tie.
Yes, asking if he can have a sandwich.
Out. Yeah, obviously standing out and desperately looking anywhere but at her. It's brilliant stuff.
Yeah, but also I think there's also that moment where he goes and meets the sort of defunct actress at the restaurant,
Shelley Winters. Brilliant Shelley Winters. Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic. Every scene of her is fantastic, but that initial scene goes on for a very long time. He goes to meet her because she is someone who the man who's missing was known to sort of, I guess, hook up with and things like that, and she also did the decor. It's interesting. So she claims that she did the decor to his love shack, which is all decked out in that sort of astrology symbols and things like that.
Yeah.
Which again, it's like, okay, and he's also sold the land to a cult. There's all these little clues that the cult is a fraud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, oh no, all these people are into a cult. No, as the film goes on, you realize the cult is actually not a cult. It's a front.
It's a scam. It's a total scam. Yeah.
And I love that bit. But I like how much time is devoted to that scene of Harper and the actress. Why am I forgetting the actress? I remember the I can't remember her name now, which is really annoying.
Faye,
that's it. Faye, yes.
Faye
I like
Estabrook.
between Harper and Faye. Yes. So I so much time is devoted to letting them, because Harper has to put on this act. He has to pretend to be some guy who's a big fan of hers and is in love with her and thinks she's gorgeous, all that kind of stuff. And he's just trying to get after information, and she's just stuffing her face, and she's just getting drunker, and she's being slobby, and it's funny because in the commentary track, Goldman makes the point of saying, if this scene was written today, the studio would say that he would meet her at the restaurant, and then you would smash cut to her just being off her face drunk. Whereas here, the scene is played out and breathes, and you're allowed to watch the night sort of go, and her get drunker and him get more kind of annoyed, but also finding it humorous. And you learn about them both throughout this process. But I like the end of that scene where he takes her home, very reminiscent of that scene in Sugar, when Sugar takes the ex-wife.
The ex-wife,
home.
yeah.
And
she's also loaded, isn't she?
Yes. And so I like the fact, Faye says, "Oh, don't do anything with me tonight," and he's really quite, at that moment, quite sweet towards her. He was never going to get in her. He never wanted to get into her pants anyway, but he's very kind of nice and kind, and not wanting to be rough and mean and push her. And that's why there's all these moments that Harper is just being a class act, and that's Newman understood the assignment.
Yeah, he did, and it seems like that, and the message about Harper they want to get across, Newman sells that because he is a nice guy, comes across as a nice guy.
Yeah,
and if you think flawed but nice, yeah, and Newman can sell that because he looks like a nice guy. He looks like the sort of person who would, pick up your shopping if you dropped it in the supermarket aisle. You know what I mean? And I'm not so sure that Frank Sinatra would have got away with that had they cast him.
No, I don't think so. I don't. There's an authenticity to Newman that not that Frank Sinatra doesn't play authentically, but there's a different sort of authenticity that Newman is that Newman brings to this role that I think I don't think Sinatra would have got.
And it's I don't mean this to be disparaging. It's an easy charm. That's not to say it's sleazy in any way. It certainly isn't. But I suppose the word is affable. He's just a bloke who you think it might be easy to get on with. He looks like the sort of bloke it's easy to get on with. So which, if you think about it, is a really good sort of characteristic for a PI who wants people to give him information that they are privy to, when really they've no obligation to do so whatsoever.
Exactly.
So, you need him to be a persuasive, likable fella so that people will assist him. People will sort of go with him, and Newman sells that like 100 times over.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere he goes, that diner scene when he tries to get information from the attendant at the diner.
Yeah, that bartender. And and he gets it. Because she's just like, well, he's just a bloke.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, you're a gambler. You're a gambling man, aren't you?" Yeah, I know your type. He's like, "Oh, you could tell." Like he just he
plays into it all. Slick. And the way he said he then goes to another bar, doesn't he? And he says because he learns from that waitress that a regular customer got a call 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and he goes to the bar where that call was made or whatever, and he says, I think he phoned me from here 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah,
and he looks as if he's making it up on the spot, as if he's it's just normal conversation. He's there's no suggestion he's after information. He's saying it as he would if he were telling the truth. And it's that sort of everyman quality, I suppose, that Newman's got.
And he nailed it.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it really is a good performance. And like I say, I love some of the things he does with his eyes. There are some bits where he's just rolling his eyes if he can't believe what he's hearing. Especially with the sheriff. The bits with the sheriff at Ace, where he says, up until yesterday I was a sheriff, but then I learned literacy or something like that. He says, and he says, you can, and at the end he says, I might have been nice if you weren't such a jerk to me. I might have been nice to you. I might have told you about the cult, and I might have told you about this. And he slaps him in the face, taps him in the face, and says, "But don't worry.
Yeah,
I don't hold any grudges." Things like that. Newman gets away with it because of his charm and he's so personable.
Yes.
As a Harper.
Yes.
That it really does sell the role that he's playing. He really does.
But he's also very good. He's also very good at being nasty when he needs to. Which we can lean into Taggert now, I think, because Alan. The character of Alan Taggert is fantastic because he's ultimately kind of the if you're listening to this, you've seen the film, so ultimately he is part of the group of people who are connected to the disappearance of Samson, and they're doing it for a ransom and all that kind of stuff. And I love the fact that throughout this piece, Taggert seems to almost love Harper. Like he likes, not love like in love, but he loves to hang out with Harper. He wants to be a PI. There's a scene where they go back to Faye's house and he's like, "Well, got to break the door down. Should I do it? Should I do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay, kid, go on, give it a go." And he starts throwing himself into the door and he's just hurting himself. And then Harper just opens the door.
Yeah. That's a great bit. And you're right, he's dead enthusiastic and sort of loves the idea of the chase. And he's there to save Harper's hide a couple of times. Yeah. It's a really good performance by Robert Wagner for playing just an airhead. A real sort of himbo.
Yeah. Yes. Because then there's a scene right after when they go back to the Samson estate. And he's wearing a trench coat, and the collar is flipped up. Like it's one of those things where if you're not paying attention, and this is what's like, Smight did a really good job here because they don't linger on it and they don't say anything about it. But if you're watching Taggert's character, he's just been in a shootout. He's just trying to break in a door. Now he's wearing a trench coat with the collar flipped up at night, talking to the police with the PI. But whereas Harper is sitting there in his disheveled suit, tired and stuff like that. Whereas this guy's like trying to dress the part because he's getting a thrill out of it. Now, and I never got the impression that Taggert was doing it to make sure that, I don't know, to make sure that Harper doesn't connect the dots entirely. I kind of get the impression that he just actually sort of wants to hang out with him. There's probably a little element of wanting to make sure he doesn't connect the dots.
I think it's an element of it. But yeah, I agree. I think his overriding motivation for all this stuff is that he's excited by it and he likes it and he thinks it's a bit of fun.
Yeah, because the big reveal happens when basically Archer finds out that Taggert he has another woman, and that's why he doesn't want to get with Miranda. And the other woman is the woman from the piano bar.
It's Julie Harris.
And Harper knows it, and the way to kind of get the information out is he starts trash talking viciously. Viciously trash talking the piano, the piano singer, the lounge singer, because he knows it's going to get under Taggert's skin and it will make him break. And that's the thing that does it. It's not that he's close to finding information out. It's the fact that he is slagging off the woman that Taggert loves that makes Taggert break.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't deducing stuff like Holmes does. This is using your instincts about people and how you've read people and pushing their buttons.
Yes.
To get what you want. and it works. I mean, he does it very well, and because he's been such a likable character, Taggert, and it really is a good performance by Robert Wagner. It really is.
He's wonderful. Yeah,
it is a satisfactory surprise reveal, I think, that he turns out to be involved in it. And you do. Well, I did feel a sort of, oh no,
yeah.
Not Alan. It's like it, Alan.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to the way the part is written and played. Because he really is a no mark, and he's a complete. He's what I imagine. The fella in The Lady in the Lake by Raymond Chandler. The sort of gigolo in that, Chris Lavery, whatever he's called. He is now what I picture Chris Lavery to be like. To look like and be like. You know what I mean? And because that's the sort of person I think he is, Alan Taggert. Makes a living as a private pilot to this rich bloke. And wants to run off with a lounge singer.
Yeah.
So and in the midst of it all, meets someone who he finds really compelling and has a good time, but with no indication he's understood what the risks of being a PI involve. he openly says, "Hey, this being a private detective is really good fun."
Yeah.
Couple of minutes later, Harper's getting his hide handed to him on a plate.
I know, right? Oh my god!
By the bouncer. It's fabulous stuff. It's fabulous stuff. But yeah, going back to your point, he uses his understanding of people to get this information out, and it's just a very clever way of doing it. It makes it a whole load more realistic. Yeah. Because the truth of the matter is, he's not going to be able to find out everything. He's going to have to rely on wit, to find some of it out.
I also really like the relationship between Harper and Albert Graves. So Albert Graves is the lawyer who is both the lawyer for Lauren Bacall's character, but also his wife. And that's how this whole thing connects. And that's how he gets the case, because Graves recommends Harper. That was one of the things that Goldman changed from the books, is making them friends. They weren't friends in the book. And for him, he was like, this is one of the things that kind of makes this really work for the film. And I have to agree. I like the friendship angle that this
I do.
that this takes.
I do, and it allows for that really great ending.
Yes.
Oh man ending.
Yeah. Because first off, I like the fact that when we first meet Graves, he is also in love with Miranda because she's young and hot.
Harper calls him like a dirty old man.
Dirty old man. He's like, you're asleep. When she's 20, he says, when she's 100, you'll only be 124. Yeah. And I'm like, no. So when she's 24, he'll be 124.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I loved. I thought that is just I love that the film is aware of this stuff. And it's like, this is actually kind of gross. Stop preying on young women. Just leave them be. Like, God, you dirty old men. So that's something again, for a film set in the 60s where it's all kind of, the hippie movement is big, free love. It's fun to me that this film is sort of aware of those sort of old men preying on young women things and trying to make a commentary on it. Yeah. And I also like that Newman's like, well, my fee is $2,000 flat and $100 a day. and Graves is like, yeah, you bet, sure it is. But if you put a good word in, talk about my virtues to Miranda, I'll make sure you get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, what, you have virtues?
And doesn't Graves say to him at one point, you look like death or something, he says, and Harper replies, it's always good to hear from one of my fans.
Yeah. I mean, the repartee is fantastic between these guys. You buy it in a way that, like, you can kind of see where future films like Lethal Weapon kind of Shane Black kind of cracking dialogue, or the nice guys, that kind of stuff. You can see where it's kind of budding, it's kind of here. It's there, and I love that. But yeah, but the friendship I think is a really important part to this film, because it's sort of, at the end of the day, once the ransom money has been reacquired, and once we find that Mr. Sampson has actually been killed, and there's this rumor of a fourth man who was maybe involved, that was responsible for killing him. There's this, the final scene is interesting to me, because unlike other films, action films, PI films, there is a big action number, but it's not the end of the movie.
No. And nor does it feel like it should be.
No.
We've mentioned films in the past where a set piece happens and you think, I'd be quite happy if the film ended now.
Yeah.
Whereas
here you're like, oh, keep going.
Yeah, keep going, because this can't be the end. But that is a great action set piece at the docks.
Yes.
Between now it's my turn to forget the character's name. Puddler? Is he called Puddler?
I don't know. It's one of the goons. I had him down as goon.
The thug. Who is brilliant. He's a real sadist. He's a real sadist, and Harper takes a couple of beatings from him, but then gets one up on him, and it's a really satisfying moment. I don't think he plays that quite the same in the book. I think it's slightly different in the book from memory.
Yeah.
But the end result is the same. But you don't think, oh, well, that's it then. Roll credits. You think there is more to come from this. And I can't
because at that point in the film, everything is tied up except for who killed Samson now.
Who killed Samson? Yeah.
We know that the cult is a fraud. We know that the lounge singer is involved. We know that Taggert is now dead. We know that Faye the actress was also involved. It's all tied up nice and neatly, except this one loose end.
It's just one loose end.
And we work it out in the car on the way back to Bacall's house to return the money. What is it? How much money is? I can't remember how much is in the bag. But
is it $500,000?
Yeah.
But again, this a bit like you said before about Harper not giving in inverted commas, to Miranda, and that being a chain. There's no femme fatale. It's playing with tropes and all that business. I like the fact that this end is very low key, and it's two mates talking in the car. And I like the fact that there's not like a sleuth versus killer shootout as such.
Yeah.
It's a confrontation scene that does sound like two mates on a ride, driving home after a couple of beers or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that makes it all the more compelling, because that is what they are. And Harper has told Graves that he's not going to let it lie. He says, I'm going to lay it all out, he says.
Yeah. We buried the lead. So, I mean, again, if I'm assuming people have seen this film, but it turns out that Graves is the one who literally had found Samson and killed him. And killed him because he was like, he knew he was never going to be able to get with his daughter, to get with Miranda and all that kind of stuff. So he sort of snapped in that moment and shot him instead of saved him. And
Harper knows, and so he's got to confront his mate, and he does it in a very low key way, and it's all the more powerful for it. You know? And Graves has a great line, which to me, like, really does sum up the best of PI fiction. And he says something along the lines of, "You were hired by a bitch to find a piece of scum," or something like that. He says,
yeah.
And you think, that's what PIs do. They don't have to work for the best of people, and they don't have to be finding the best of people. It's just a job to them. They just do it for the money, and it doesn't matter who it is. All that is really well summed up in that one line for me. And then you get this great ending, which is, I'm gonna go to the cops. Harper says, I'm paraphrasing now, but I'm going to go to the cops. And if you don't want it coming out, you'll have to shoot me. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And then they're both like, one's waiting to be shot and one's deciding whether he's got the guts to do it.
I love that scene because he gets out of the car and he's walking towards Bacall's house because he's got the bag of money, and he's and then Graves is sitting there with the gun, and they're both sort of like, is he going to shoot me? And there's like, am I going to shoot him? And then
they both say, oh man.
Yes.
They both go, oh hell, whatever it is. And then it ends, and it's superb ending. It does what a mystery story needs to do. It explains who's done what to whom and why, but the manner in which it presents it is so refreshing and so well orchestrated that it feels new. It's an age-old scene: killer confronted by cop. It happens in every mystery thriller going, but it feels fresh because of the way it's presented and packaged. Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of work.
Yeah, it really is a bold way to end your film. Your big action PI film, to have the last 10 minutes of the movie just be two guys sitting in a car, and then end with one guy throwing a bag of money down and being like, oh man, like it really is.
Yeah,
because it's one of those things where it's like it's still kind of ambiguous. Did friendship win out? Is he going to let his friendship go? Is he going to let his friend go? It's kind of, or is it that Graves just can't kill his friend? Which one of the two wins out in the end? We don't know. I like that we don't know.
Yeah. Or does, could you even argue that Harper says if he was going to do it, he'd have done it by now?
Yes.
So he's not killing me because he's my friend. Well, do I really want to do what I'm threatening to do? Because he's still my friend. Does Lauren Bacall get her money back? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. My gut says no. My gut says the money never gets found. And
my gut says that they walk away from each other.
Yeah, him and Graves, they part ways, and that's
and
that's that.
And because Harper says to himself, well, if he's not shot me yet, he's not going to do it now. So can I do the dirty on him after he's not done the dirty on me?
Yeah.
I don't think I can. Yeah, because everything that Harper has been shown as being throughout the 2 hours of the film screams that he wouldn't. He might have exposed everything if Graves wasn't involved and it was just Taggert and Betsy or whatever, Julie Harris.
Yeah,
he might have done then. He might have given Lauren Bacall the money back then, but his mate's involved.
Yeah,
exactly. My gut says no as well. My gut says they just call it quits and walk away.
Yeah. Hell of an ending to a hell of a movie.
Hell of a film.
I absolutely loved it. It's sad because we only have there's only one other Harper film. Newman comes back to play Harper in 1975 in an adaptation of The Drowning Pool, which is based off of one of Macdonald's films or books from 1950, same name. So this one they actually kept the name. But Goldman did adapt The Chill, which was Macdonald's 1964 novel, for the same producer. But it was never done. Newman didn't want to do the project for some reason, which is it's a bit disappointing. I would have liked to have seen a handful of films as Newman, Goldman writing scripts to Newman-led Harper films. I would have liked to have seen a couple more of those. That would have been nice.
That would have been nice. Yeah.
The Drowning Pool is definitely the lesser of the two. But yeah, so it's a shame that we never got any more. But Goldman did win the Edgar Award for Best Motion Picture Screenplay for this film, which I think is very, very well deserved. I think when you really, it's easy to watch this film. This is why it was so funny when my father-in-law just didn't pay, was just instantly cut the film off. And it's like, actually, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of layers happening that you're slowly peeling them back, and you're realizing how intricate every single person and scene is, and what is going on. I mean, Newman has a Cary Grant quality to him throughout this movie. He is lighting up every single scene with his charm and charisma, and the way he's weaving in and out of these people's lives and getting information is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. But the straightforward mystery of the missing husband, yeah, cool, super fun, but it just keeps getting more interesting. It's like, you got this weird cult, then you got this, this washed up movie star, then you've got this, this stuff happening, and it's
slave labor.
slave labor, like, God, like, it's really dark.
It is really dark, and it's I've mentioned before, the PI stories I like the most, the noirs I like the most, are the ones that they start as something little and end up being like big conspiracies, or like lots of stuff hanging on them, like so it might be a missing husband, but actually it's not about that at all. It's about something much more important, and this does that for me, because what he uncovers in trying to find, he's only got to find a husband who's legged it. That's the assignment, because she doesn't want to lose her inheritance. Yeah. But it's not about that at all. It's about something completely different. It's about something much more intricate, and that I find that really satisfying. Yeah, as a genre of crime fiction, I find that really entertaining and enthralling. And it happens in the Macdonald books, and it happens in this film, because this film is a great adaptation. It's a cinematic adaptation in every sense of the word, in that it's big, it's bold, but it is anchored in Macdonald's original novel every step of the way, and that is no mean feat. And I think, and it's to the movie's credit, definitely to the movie's credit.
It's also interesting because Goldman was talking in the commentary track about obviously this film, but he was saying, he was looking at it and saying, this film, in terms of the practicality of it, it's really straightforward. It's really simple. It's not a film that he was looking at. I don't think this is a film that would have cost a lot to make. It's nice looking, it's well done, but it's not one that is heavy on stuff. But he was like, because then he started talking about how Jaws changed Hollywood, and everything became about special effects and things like that. And I think that's interesting, because when I go back and I watch some of these old PI films, like, I like the stripped backness to them. I think it's another reason why I really liked Sugar, why I really took so close to that, because it was very stripped back. It wasn't, as much as I enjoyed Beverly Hills Cop 4, there's lots of insane over the top action. There's lots of, the whole franchise is full of that. Lethal Weapon's full of that. Other Nice Guys is full of that. But I think like Sugar reminded me of this, and this reminded me of Sugar, because it is this very pared down, just guy trying to find information, getting into fist fights with people, and that's the extent of it. There's no massive explosions. There's no over the top, karate. It's played very simple, but the story is so rich that you can't help but get deeply invested in these characters' lives.
Agreed. It is simple, but I would sort of add ostensibly, because it's not. It's quite. What it's doing is quite complicated. It's quite
narratively, definitely,
narratively, yeah. But it appears simple because it's so well done.
Yeah,
it's so well done, and
definitely
the pared down aspects of it is a benefit, because I've got a big thing, haven't I, about films talking down to their audience and signposting everything, and using sledgehammers to make a point. And this doesn't do that. This So the whole thing about the overcoat with the collar turned up, you know, you could miss that. That could pass you by completely.
I'll be honest, this was the first time I noticed it. I've watched this film about 4 or 5 times. This is the first time I've noticed. I'm like, oh my God, he's dressed like a PI.
Yeah.
This is the first time.
But that's what I like about it, because it's not. If it were made today, you'd get a one-liner, wouldn't you? You know,
yeah, you would.
You look like Bogart on his day off, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and like you don't need it.
No,
you don't need it. You know.
No.
I love all that, but the subtlety of it and the fact it doesn't condescend its audience is really, really sort of appreciated by me.
Yes.
This is highly recommended. For me, the books are highly recommended. I think if you've not read them, go and find them.
Well, we might as well rate it. We might as well rate it then. We might as well. We're getting there. We're getting to the rating part.
We're getting to the rating
part.
Okay.
Let's rate it. Let's rate this sucker. So for everyone who's listened, if you're a first-time listener, we rate all of our films out of 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. We'll start with you, Matt.
Guys, it's a 5, Luke.
It's fair enough.
It's a 5. It satisfies on so many levels. This we've covered it all. The cast is brilliant. The writing is brilliant. The direction is spot on, even though we don't know anything more about him. And the source.
Thank God for Smith's wife's help.
Smith's, yeah, absolutely. And the source. Thank God he was nervous. Yeah,
right.
And the source material is fabulous. So this is a decent treatment of that source material. So this is a 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to give it 5 Falcons as well for a lot of those same reasons. It's a film that has such a strong cast. Every actor in this film is a grade A actor. There is no one who is bad or questionable. Everyone is so good in this scene. I mean, like the cult guy walking around with that stupid bird. Like, you can't. Working with animals is very difficult. That dude, like, that was great. That dude walking around with that bird on his arm that whole time he's trying to have this conversation with like all of this stuff. Janet Leigh is fantastic in this. Everyone is Miranda's great. Bacall is great. Everyone is A game. Everyone is A game in this film. And I also love the fact that it's 1966 and it's going against trend. It's going against spy thrillers. It's not trying to inject spy-iness to a Lou Harper, Lou Archer novel. It's just, we're gonna do a Lou Archer novel. That's what we're gonna do. And I applaud Goldman for sticking to that. And I'm glad that the producers clearly had faith in Goldman's writing to produce that script.
To let him do it, yeah, definitely.
And for whatever reason that made Jack good or bad as a director, it worked. Maybe he was nervous, but he had a strong cast and an incredible strong lead in Newman that made everyone else feel like we're in good hands. And part of that being, as Newman said, or rather, Taggert says via that Goldman's script was so solid that they knew it was going to be good. So it's stick to the script.
Yeah, absolutely. In many ways, I suppose perhaps we're giving too much credit to Mr. Smight. Perhaps it's a case of he had a great cast and a great script. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to know what really happened with that. But if the vibe is that the actors were a bit sort of like, he's a bit nervous, so we have to rely on our lead actor for assurance, then fine. Okay, I trust him. They trust Newman, so they roll with that, which clearly works.
Clearly works, because this is up there with the best. It's brilliant production, brilliant film.
And it's interesting because often a lot of times people sort of look to Chinatown as the thing that reinvents noir, the sort of the first that neo-noir. But I mean, we're only a few years out from A Touch of Evil. A Touch of Evil is 59?
58, I think.
58, 59, somewhere in that range. So it's decade less, a couple of years shy of a decade. This is one of those early neo-noirs that says, hey, there's still life in this. Hey, this noir stuff is more dexterous than we. It's still got life.
It's still got stuff to do. Yeah. So this is equidistant between Touch of Evil and Chinatown. 8 years either side.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'd agree, and it's not something I thought about until we did this episode. But I would agree that the noir renaissance starts here. I think.
Yeah, if it's not the start, it's definitely one of the early starts. There might be a few little ones, but
there might be a few little ones. Yeah, but it's a major player in the renaissance of film noir.
Definitely. So go buy it. I'm a strong advocate of physical media. I found this film. There's a special edition Blu-ray out there that you can buy. It's worth it. Buy it. Own this movie physically. It's great to actually own this film. I have both digital and physical of this film because it's just so good. But I also have The Drowning Pool. I also have the special edition DVD Blu-ray of the Drowning Pool, which even though is the lesser and came out in 1975 of all years, still worth it. But yeah, so go track this film down. Go buy it. You can. Yeah, it's worth having in your collection.
It's definitely worth owning.
Well, I think with that, I mean, we might as well wrap up now and say have a happy holiday. But like I said, we'll be back with some special episodes. But this is the last proper review of 2024.
And thanks for being with us.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with a slightly different case. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, and be sure to take care walking down those mean streets.